Have you ever seen the government ever work this hard to silence people and keep them in line? I've never seen it. If they thought we were sheep, if they thought we couldn't stop it, they wouldn't care. They wouldn't do any of this. But they are working overtime. And they're talking now probably about at least 50% of the country. Remember, to change things, it's the tipping point is like 19 or 20%. They're talking about half of the nation. That's pretty significant, and they know it.
What can people do? Like, would you recommend people actually take their money out of Chase and put it in the local federal credit union in their city? I mean, that's probably a small step.
100%. That's a big step. Because if all of our audiences did that, it would shake the financial markets. They would be like, wait a minute. How much money have you lost? Because that's the money that they are using. And by the way, after 08 and the banking collapse, the laws were changed. The money you have in your checking and savings, you are the depositor of last resort. So you can't go get your money if they say, there's a banking crisis. We need all the money we can get. You have zero access to the money. You're the last debtor that they need to pay. You're not the first. So I'm not giving my money to these big financial institutions. You go to your local credit union, make sure that everything is, I can't remember the acronym for the FDIC for
there's a separate one, yeah.
The separate one. But you make sure that it's insured and you put everything there. It's so critical that we are not taking money, our money, loaning money, giving money to these banks that are then spreading it all over America and the news that broke last week all over the world. Instead, we must keep it local. We have to strengthen our local communities, our local businesses. So best way to do it, and I would do it today, take your money and tell them why. I'm not going to be in a bank that is involved and has ESG scores. I'm going to a local credit union. Do it today.
So speaking of things that you can do today, we're all watching, the supply chain stuff. And it took me, I moved to Florida a month ago. It took the truck literally 5 weeks to get here because the truck with all my stuff just came this week because they can only get trucks to drive one way because in a normal time, trucks are going both ways with stuff and they also can't get drivers anymore. And the price of gas went up. And the supply chain, you can't get stuff to build out, say, a house or a studio and everything else. Do we just need to build a parallel economy at every level? And I mean from banks to a new Home Depot to just the whole damn thing. We're going to have to buy our own candy shops.
And you start by putting your money into a local bank and just realize it's the George Bailey Savings and Loan. It has to stay local. They are Mr. Potter. That is the best movie to explain the Great Reset. He looks at people just as, they're bums and they're never going to get anywhere. So he'll take their money and he'll build Potterville. And that is what they're building in the Western world is Potterville. Can I ask you one question, Dave?
Sure.
What are you doing with Bitcoin? I put my money in Bitcoin and I'm like, let it ride. But now with the Treasury, the Fed, the IMF, they are going to kill these things. What are you doing? Are you leaving it in or are you taking it out?
Yeah, so I have a chunk of Bitcoin, not a ton, but I have several Bitcoin, and I'm just leaving it. I've never touched any of it, and I just wanted to sit there and see what happens. I actually was going to ask you in a few minutes about, Biden now wants to regulate Bitcoin, which is the whole purpose of a decentralized coin, a whole decentralized system is to not be regulated, and you can see, obviously, anyone watching this can understand why that would be separate. That's the off-ramp for this insanity. I think people have to have it. You have to be able to diversify because if they come for you, if what you're laying out here is right, and by and large I think it is, it's like you're going to need some other ways to have commerce with people. You're going to be able, when the shit hits the fan, I mean, you're going to need to be able to trade goods and services with people, and that's where crypto comes in.
So that's where I go to, I live here in the city in Dallas. But if crap starts to hit the fan, I've got another house in a very small farming community. And that's where I'm planning on being with my family and friends, is in this really small, tight-knit community. And we're right now working on, the farmer's market. We are talking to each other. Hey, what do you have in your tool shed that can make things? What do you have? And so we're not buying the same things, that we can share if things really get bad, that we can fix everything that we need. That's the kind of stuff that I think we really need to look at. Are you in a community of like-minded people that will help each other? Because, Dave, there's something else that I touch on in the book. What's so insidious about this is I have been talking since probably 1995. There is a new industrial revolution that is coming that will be as profound as the Industrial Revolution. But when it starts, it will happen in a 10-year period, not 100 years. Well, we're there. We're already, I think we're year 2 in that the fourth industrial revolution. And by 2030, 40% of jobs are going to be gone. Maybe there'll be some new things, but probably not. That's why we're talking about, basic universal income and everything else, because tech knows what is coming. And now so do our politicians. The one thing that everybody is pushing us the opposite direction, that we have to recognize, stop and go the other way, is empathy. The only thing that AI cannot duplicate is empathy. If you're looking to tell your kids what kind of job are you going to get, you'd be really wise to say, forget about school or whatever. If you want to be a nurse, go to school. Not a doctor, a nurse. Go to school and make sure you focus everything on empathy, because the AI is going to tell you everything that's going on in that person. You have to be the one that is the face that comes in and says, it's all right. Everything is all right. It's going to be okay. Because AI cannot do that. That's where its hole is. Also, if the world is run by AI or people that, just think of other people as sheep, gosh, they are missing all empathy. And that's a pretty dark world. What's crazy is, in many ways, the liberals were right. We were wrong. We thought it would come as, some communist Marxist thing. Those guys are being used. This is coming through our corporations. Every time I watch a dystopian movie, I roll my eyes when they're like, I work for the corporation, AKA the government. And I'm like, oh, stop it. That is what they're right. And how the left is, I'm against big pharmaceutical companies. Really? Except for right now when it counts? I mean, it's crazy. They knew all this stuff. We mocked them. And now we're standing where they were going, guys, you were right. I mean, can't you see this?
But you got to kind of admire it, right? Like, not what it's doing, but the trick that it pulled right there. You got to admire it. That these people you've got, as you're saying, they're the pawns, these communists and socialists and all these people, they're the pawns and the foot soldiers, and they think that they're against the power while they literally are for all the corporations. They're for all of the messaging. I walk into Target yesterday to buy some cleaning supplies, and there's a massive Black Lives Matter section there. And it's like, you're fighting the power? Really?
Yeah.
With that shirt and sweatshirt and pants and shoes.
I think in 100 years, Dave, this is going to be studied in every government program that is, trying to teach about history and government and behavioral science. This is the time that the world will look back. I think we're going to be studied for 1,000 years, especially if we defeat it. No nation has ever defeated anything like this. I think we could be the exception to that rule, but only if we all wake up, don't go down the road of conspiracies, just get the actual facts, because they're worse than anybody that could come up with conspiracies online. These are true. And if you just do that, remain calm, work on empathy, don't play into their hands, we beat them. And here's why I know this. Have you ever seen the government ever work this hard to silence people and keep them in line? I've never seen it. If they thought we were sheep, if they thought we couldn't stop it, they wouldn't care. They wouldn't do any of this. But they are working overtime. And they're talking now probably about at least 50% of the country. Remember, to change things, it's the tipping point is like 19 or 20%. They're talking about half of the nation. That's pretty significant, and they know it.
Do you think that the default position of humanity is to cower? That in these moments, it seems like it's a lot easier to cower, right? I mean, even now, like, that's the thing. When people say this to me about how do I get brave or whatever, it's like, we live in the freest place in the history of the world.
We don't need bravery
and
now.
if you're afraid now, imagine the second that thing gets turned a little bit, how afraid you're going to be. So it seems like fear, and I'm sure there's a psychological component to this, that fear does something in the brain that maybe bravery or maybe it really is about just knowing what you are and what you're made of.
Let me tell you two stories. First, fear shuts your brain down, okay? It shuts reason down. You're in fight or flight. And that's a good thing, because you don't want to be going, well, I don't know, should I hit him a little harder? You
Right,
just are swinging.
Yeah.
So fear and anger, really bad. And that's why we're addicted to outrage. We will swing. You got to shake that, or you won't think. It's biological. Two stories. The other person we met with in Poland was the chief rabbi. And he said, I think it was 7,000, there were 7,000 people that stood. And have you been to Auschwitz?
No, I haven't.
When you go, there's churches, I mean, a block away.
Yeah.
There are houses everywhere, and they're old. They were there. And I left there, and I was enraged. I remember crying and looking at the houses and screaming in my head, where the hell were you? Where were you? I meet with him, and I said, how? Out of all the millions of people? And he said, you're thinking that's a small number? He said, that's an incredible number of people. People, you're in a scary movie, you look away. When something like this is coming, it is human nature to look away or to dismiss. And we have this gift of fear that warns us, but we use logic, and sometimes we use it just to protect ourselves, because, Dave, I don't think people are afraid of standing. I think they're afraid of knowing the truth. You look at the people who stand. The people who stand are the ones who are going, I learned something new. I learned something. It's changed me. They're not standing. You're not standing because you're brave and I'm going to take a stand. You're saying, wait a minute. Scales fell off my eyes. I just learned something. When you are inquisitive, when you are based in, wait a minute, I really want to know. You have already prepared to, but do you really? Mm-hmm. You and I know you know this. I think we've talked about it. Mm-hmm. I went through it and you went through it. You do come to a point to where you're saying, if I take another step, everything in my life could change. My friends might change. They might look at me differently. And you take that step and say, I want to know the truth. That's where people fail. If you can't take that leap, and that's why I really think you're seeing people like you're seeing the inquisitive, because that's in their nature, to question. Wait a minute, that doesn't make sense. And if you're like that, you most likely have already passed that line of uncomfortability because you've had things that you realized and you went, oh, crap. Okay, well, I guess I don't believe that anymore.
Yeah, and I just don't know how I could wake up and put stuff in my hair and look in the mirror and go,
that's why
I just don't know how I could do it. But I know some people do it, and then I think this is what Jordan would describe as sort of the slow road to hell. You will just diminish yourself every day of your life until the end.
You have to stop looking. You have to turn around, because it will always present you with the option. Oh, you saw it? You looked out and you saw them just lining up a family of Jews shooting them? Okay, now what do? Once you see it, it presents you with the choice, do I go back to sleep or do I stand?
So I know it's very easy to always be like, okay, both sides are going crazy, they're equally horrible and all of those things. Like that's sort of like the easy way of doing it. I'm not saying that's what you're doing here, but that's sort of the easy way to do it. And we all fall in that trap sometimes, right? Yeah. Because just for brevity's sake, sometimes it's easier to say that. But it seems to me that for all the people that absolutely despise Trump, that hate everything about the right basically has been in power for the last 2 years. There's a lot of good things happening in the country related to economics and the fact that we're not entering foreign wars, and there's some interesting things happening with North Korea and a series of other things. And the state has not used its power to silence anyone. What I fear, and this is why I don't think it's an even, oh, both sides are crazy thing, is that the left is about state power. And what I fear is they've said, well, half of the country is Nazis. We cannot be civil with them because they're coming to get us. And if these people took power, well, now we have everything that you just laid out, because they don't mind using the apparatus of the state to accomplish their goals. And I'm not saying Republicans are always right about this stuff and they screw up all the little government things that they should care about and all of that.
The left has become everything they said the Tea Party was, okay? That we weren't. They have become violent, they have become unreasonable, they want to silence people, and they will silence people. That's why you're seeing people begin to stand up and say, however, it's one of my fears with Donald Trump, and the great thing is he says a lot, and most of it never happens. You know what I mean? My fear is he has said, maybe we should look into the license of these companies, I don't think he means it, but you signal that to people on the right or the left. You're basically saying, yeah, that's on the field of play. It's not on the field of play.
Although there's an interesting libertarian argument whether the government should be giving licensing.
No. I don't think they should have license at all.
Right.
I certainly don't want the government to say, you know what, you've been a little harsh, so I'm going to look into your license. No, not at all. Get them out of that. Here's the thing that people aren't thinking about. Government is about to become, unless it marries into it, pretty inconsequential, because it will never be able to keep up with technology.
So is that the saving grace here?
No.
not that I was going to give Google a lot of
The left is concentrating their power in Silicon Valley. And that's where you can really silence people. The guy who wrote IBM and the Holocaust, I can't remember his name. Really brilliant guy, well thought out. We were talking and talking about how the Germans, how they silence people and how they cordon people off and then just get smaller and smaller groups. And then they eventually put you behind a wall in a ghetto. Well, they would build the wall higher and higher so people couldn't hear or see. Isn't that what Google and Facebook are doing? We're building digital ghettos. We have the ability now. You can speak all you want, Dave, but I'm changing the algorithm and you're not going to be heard. I mean, you look at what the deal with Facebook was. I promote them. I give them my 10 million listeners, and I say, hey, you can find me at Facebook. Let's communicate. Then they take those listeners that said, I want to hear from him.
Yeah.
And then they change the algorithm, and I can't communicate to my own people. I went to Auschwitz, and I brought my kids. This is 2012. And we were going to Israel for vacation, and I was bringing the whole family, and I said, you can't go to Israel for the first time unless you pass through the gates of Auschwitz first. And my wife said, honey, that doesn't make it really a vacation. And I said, I want the kids to understand why Israel is there, and I want them to make a choice now, when they're young. Who are you going to be? If the world goes insane, who will you be? And I engaged a woman. She was, in her 80s, and so sweet. She was one of the righteous among the nations, which are the Christians that saved Jews. And we went through Auschwitz, and then we met with her. And as we were leaving, she told us this. She sat down with the family for like an hour. It was just amazing. And she told us how at 16 years old, she saw a Jew on the street just starving. You could only feed a Jew, I think, 400 or 800 calories a day. And just starving. And it was a girl her age. And she said, please, do you have any food? She said, I don't, but if you come here tomorrow, I'll bring you something. So she came, she sat down at the dinner table that night with her mom and dad, and they were eating dinner. And this is a death sentence. You feed a Jew, you get the same thing. It's a death sentence. And she said, Mom and Dad, I have to tell you something. She said, I promised I would bring some food tomorrow to this Jewish girl who was starving. And she said she remembers the whole room just stopping, and her mom and dad putting their spoon down and looking at each other and staring at each other, not saying anything. And then her mom got up. She started pulling a big pot out and put it on the stove. And Paulina said, what are you doing, Mom? She said, well, if she's coming for food, she'll clearly have hungry friends. They saved about 100 Jews. So after I talked to her, I said to her, Paulina, how do I water the seed of righteousness in myself and in my family? What do you do to strengthen that? That seed is there. How do we make it into a tree so we stand? And she looked at me and said something that I thought was profound, but up until recently, I didn't truly understand. And she said, you misunderstand. The righteous didn't suddenly become righteous. They just refused to go over the cliff with the rest of humanity. That's fantastic. You don't ever have to get to von Stauffenberg, okay? All you have to do is say, no, that's crazy. I know what I saw. That's a car burning behind you. That's Antifa. That's a riot. That's looting. That's wrong.
Right, mostly peaceful.
Yeah, it's not mostly peaceful. I'm sorry. You're going over the cliff into insanity. I'm standing where I've always stood.
You know, it's interesting. I often think now that I've been taking some of these positions that aren't thought of as popular or okayed by mainstream or whatever, that the only thing to fear is fear itself. And I've been thinking about that a lot lately, that the more that I say the things that I believe to be true that happen to be against the mainstream things, the more I get over that. Because if you can get over the fear, then if it's true that we're on a list and they're coming for us,
then we're on a list.
Then we're on a list. And by the way, pretty much everyone's on the list. And that's why there's that famous thing, they came for the Jews first. It's like, we're all part of this thing. But it's a very strange time that you can show me some of these things, founding documents from the United States, documents about saving Jews during World War II, and it feels like something that's kind of now.
Only if people don't find their courage.
Yeah.
I truly believe, and this is why I think you're so powerful, courage is contagious. It is. Not everybody's a leader. Not everybody's willing to step out into danger. Not everybody's willing to lose all their friends or to whatever. But when they see someone risk everything and they see them on a list, if you can get them early enough, they'll step out. But the longer you wait, the worse it gets. That's Bonhoeffer was a pacifist, was involved in von Stauffenberg's coup. How? He's a pacifist. He he said there's nothing else we can do at this point because it's too late. The people's hearts had turned to stone, and you couldn't turn them. We have to find a way to make sure that our hearts and the hearts of everybody we know stay soft and see people as people, not enemies.
You know, when I was on tour with Jordan, one of the things that he would bring up often, because he would talk about the parallels to Nazism, to some of the authoritarian movements of the day, and he would say to everyone in the crowd, he'd say, you know, there's 3,000 of you sitting out here right now, and I guarantee you that every single one of you would think that you wouldn't be a Nazi if this was 1936 Germany, and that proves probably that you would be. And I always thought that that was pretty powerful. That we all think we would do the unpopular thing. We all think we would do the risky thing. We all judge everybody by our standards of today.
I'm not sure I'd stand in the end. I mean, a friend of mine, Marcus Luttrell, I said to him, how do you stand torture and not break? And he said, Glenn, everyone breaks. Everyone breaks. He said, but the ones who break the fastest and the loudest are the ones who will say, I'll stand. Oh, I'll stand. Because they haven't thought about it. It's why I wanted to bring my kids to Auschwitz. I need you to feel it so you can think about it and really look at this as a possibility. And once you do that and you realize, by the grace of God, I'll stand, then you're ready. But we have got to prepare ourselves now to be ready, because if you're ready now, the problems go away. They think you're sheep. I mean, I asked you on a podcast with you the last time, where's the line? What line do you have as an individual that you say, I won't cross? Well, I won't go there. I mean, if I said to you last summer, yeah, they're going to tell us that we can't have Thanksgiving with our family, that we have to wear a mask all the time, and the president's going to make that mandate, and they're going to shut down the economy. You and I and everybody else would have said, never, never.
I would have said, you know, maybe they're right about that Beck guy.
Yeah, right? You would have. You would have. It's insane to think, look where we are. And now all of a sudden, that's normal. It's the new normal.
Yeah, they get you with that phrase, the new normal, because there's an implicit, accept it. It's implicitly, it's here, so you better accept it.
So the thing about war is just about changing leadership, borders, and financial systems. That's what war is really about for the people up at the top. And it's usually so horrible that society, even great ones, never go back to the way they were, because you're so willing to accept peace. I just want to go back to normal, that you never reset back to normal, and you'll accept almost anything. Here we are. Look at what we're willing to accept at this point. And I know I did. When they started talking about the new normal, I was like, no, I don't want a new normal. I want normal.
Yeah, regular normal will be just fine.
Right.
Yeah.
How many people now would just be happy if we had, okay, this is a new normal, and they're going to start, letting things back up, but it's never going to get the way it was. Lots would accept that.
I want to talk to you about taking that time off, and I want to explore what you just said, how people look crazy, because I think we are going into some sort of an insanity with all of this. But I just want to give the audience a sneak peek. And they will know the answer to this if they've been paying attention, but you will have no idea. And as I was preparing last night, I thought, I could read these headlines. If I had been unplugged, I could read these headlines and I would have absolutely no idea which was true and which was false. Okay? All right. So I'm going to get two truths and a lie. Okay? So I'm going to give you two headlines that are true. One is a lie. I'm going to do two sets of.
Guess which is,
I want you to guess. I'm not going to tell you. We'll reveal it here in a minute.
I'm a little rusty related to reality right now.
Okay.
All right.
Headline number one.
Yeah.
Trump wants to buy Greenland. Headline number two. Trump suggests we nuke the hurricane. And headline number three. AOC triggered over a cardboard cutout.
Well, that one sounds real to me. That one definitely sounds real to me. Before I give you the answer, I just have to say one thing about Trump, because when you're off the grid, you realize that not everyone is talking about Trump all the time.
No one. Almost no one is.
Well, the funny thing is, so for a couple of the days, so I really, even though I wasn't online doing things, I was working in my own way. And as you know, my book got released right before I left, and I was doing things related to that and editing and a bunch of other stuff. But for a couple of days, we went away and we were at this resort, and I'm doing the beach thing. And in the mornings, they would give all the people a sheet of paper with the news in whatever language people were. So they had a French one, Italian one, English one. And the only thing I saw all month was, I just saw 2 words, Trump vows. And then I looked away, and I just thought, whatever it is, vows to blow up Greenland or buy Greenland.
No, buy Greenland, blow up the hurricanes.
Blow up hurricanes. Whatever it is, it's like, man, like it'll happen whether I pay attention or not. So to answer your question,
Which one?
The cardboard cutout triggering AOC, that sounds very legit to me.
Right, which could be a trick.
Trump saying he's going to blow up a hurricane sounds like the type of thing that he would say to trigger the entire media, and then they make it sound like he thinks he can blow up hurricanes.
Okay.
And then the other one was that he said he's going to buy Greenland.
Yeah.
That's funny to me. That one sounds like the hurricane one sounds so stupid that I think it's real. The AOC one sounds within pretty much the rhythm of everything.
So you're going.
So I'm going Trump buying Greenland.
Trump buying Greenland is false.
Is false.
Okay, we'll come back to that here in a second.
You're not going to tell me.
Second one, not going to tell you
okay.
yet. Okay, the second one. Study finds humans are biased against robots of color. Headline number 2, trans activist Jessica Yaniv. Do you remember?
Yeah.
Okay.
There she was.
Trans activist Jessica Yaniv tweets, she can't go into the pool today because her period started and she forgot her tampons. Or headline number 3.
I miss the internet.
NYU Gender Studies Department says milking cows is like sexual assault and raping cows. Which one is real?
I feel like you're pulling a fast one on me. These are all real. That's what it sounds like to me. But, oh God. The Jessica Yaniv one, because that story about this...
Waxing.
Wax, suing somebody because of waxing. That sounds right to me. Like, that sounds within the realm of the insanity that thing had been about, so I'll put that one aside.
All right.
Give me, what was the first one?
The first one was the Jessica Yaniv, I think. No. It was study finds humans are biased on robots of color.
Yeah, that sounds legit to me. There's definitely going to be robot racism coming. Third
and
one,
so
one
it's the NYU study that says milking cows is akin to rape.
God, that sounds real too. I'm gonna say milking cows.
Okay, all right. So now
you just say the name Glenn Beck. You just say your name. People go completely bananas. On both
One way
sides.
or another.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How does that feel?
I don't deserve either of them.
Yeah.
I don't deserve the vitriolic hate, and I don't deserve the adoration. It's weird because A, I don't feel like I deserve either of them. But I'm willing to take the bad. I'm willing to sit and listen to the people who have the bad to say about me, because some of it I understand their perspective, some of it I made huge mistakes, just wrong on, but I'm willing to take my share of what we're now living, and in hopes that other people will go, okay, wait a minute, what have I done to, even just a Facebook post?
Yeah.
What am I doing to contribute to the incivility that we have? I had a bigger platform, but we all have one.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you mentioned a Facebook post, because now we live in a time where if someone absolutely hates you or absolutely loves you, and as you said, you may not deserve either one of those, they can get to you immediately. Is that great, or is it maddening? Or it's both, probably.
No,
like
if it's reasoned, it's fantastic. I mean, I've done radio. This is, in March, will be my 40th year in broadcast.
Wow.
I've done it for 40 years. When I did it, to get into radio, you had to have a test and get a license. I mean, it was it was hard to get a job. And there's only a small pool of people that could do it. Now, everybody has the same voice. If you have something that is appealing, there's no gates you have to go through. You can now write the president. You can tweet. He might read it and retweet it.
Right,
okay?
right.
So everybody has the opportunity to have their voice heard. That is miraculous. And a chance for me to write to the president or to Elon Musk or anybody and have them respond to me is truly remarkable.
Yeah.
What we're missing is, but because you have that power, it also requires responsibility. And because I did radio for 40 years, and my radio worldview was really shaped during the beginnings of Howard Stern. And I mean the early Washington, before anybody knew him, Howard Stern. I was raised in that era of stunting and, entertainment. And what I did was I mixed the two. Trouble. And I didn't see a problem. It was a natural evolution. That has taught a whole generation of that's the way you do it.
Yeah.
Not good.
I remember watching you when you were on Fox News, and you have the board and you're drawing arrows everywhere talking about the government's this and God's here and people are replacing government and blah, 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 and all this stuff. And I remember being half entertained, half I was like, wow, this guy is nuts. I can't believe this is on television. And then half going, there's actual information here. So when you started doing that stuff, was that really the goal? Like, I'm going to do a little bit of everything. And,
I learned,
and then we'll figure out what the sauce is.
So my job, as I saw it, was to get ratings. That's my job, to get ratings.
People forget that. Like, that shouldn't be overlooked, right? That at the end of the day, you have to get ratings, you have to get clicks, whatever.
How many people now keep checking their Facebook page to see how many likes they get?
Right.
I mean, moms at home, how many likes do I get?
Right.
It's the same thing. And if you're not careful, you'll find yourself caught up in those likes.
Yeah.
Early in my life, out being an alcoholic, before I sobered up, I'd do anything for a rating point. That drove me. Rating point, success, money, fame.
Yeah.
I crashed. Thank God for that crash, or I would have probably still be at Fox, and I'd be a monster. But the crash taught me that can help you on goals. Don't let it control you. So yes, my job was to get ratings.
Right.
But that was just a vehicle for me to be able to have my point of view and perspective. And my perspective was the early 20th century progressive is extraordinarily dangerous. You may not be that person today, but the roots are this, and some are still those people.
Yeah.
Okay?
And that's what you were drawing, really, a lot, often, talking about the role of government, a lot of the things that I discuss on this show. You were saying it starts here.
Correct.
And this is where it's going to end.
Correct. And so I did like 3 shows on Woodrow Wilson, and they were number 1.
Yeah.
Beating primetime. I did Hayek, I think a week on Hayek, which put Road to Serfdom back on the top 10 New York Times bestseller list.
Yeah.
And it was a rating success. So my job was, how do I make it interesting, make it fun, make it entertaining, and really teach something that no one else says can be taught on TV?
If you're looking for more honest and thoughtful conversations about politics instead of nonstop yelling, check out our politics playlist. And if you want to watch full interviews on a variety of topics, watch our full episode playlist all right over here. And to get notified of all future videos, be sure to subscribe and click the notification bell.